Next, I'd like to ask Matthew Jones, who's a blockchain leader, Automotive, Aerospace and Defense at IBM Services, to come and join us. Is a digital consultant with IBM's Automotive, Aerospace and Defense Global Centre of Competence. And it says here, is intrigued by blockchain's potential to shake up the industry value chains. And we're intrigued to hear what you have to say, so please take it away.
Okay, good afternoon. So my name is Matthew Jones. I'm from our Global Automotive and Aerospace and Defense team, and along with a colleague of mine who's not here today called Richard Nash, who is from our government team and has a lot of experience in the travel and transportation sector. What I wanted to do was to bring out three examples from that future world that we're all thinking about here as to where we think blockchain can bring value. And in transportation systems, that key thing that where we see blockchain bringing value is in traceability. So for those of you in the room who remember one of the things John Palfreyman mentioned at the beginning, this concept of the immutable record. So fundamental to any kind of blockchain is this concept that if you write a transaction to the blockchain, you cannot edit or you cannot delete that transaction. If you write a transaction in error, you need to write a new transaction with the correct information. In that way, that gives you that life history back to the beginning of time about that asset, about that thing, or back to when you first started collecting information about it. So for me, traceability is really that key thing where we think blockchain can bring value. So for those of you that watched the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics last week in Pyeongchang, you may have seen 1,000-something drones flying in formation and forming the shape of the Olympic rings and various other in-life animations down here on the bottom right. Did anybody in the room watch the Winter Olympics opening ceremony? Okay, great. Okay, so fantastic as a consumer spectacle for general public, but I think if you are in charge of critical national infrastructure and those sorts of things, or an airport like Heathrow, then pretty worrying as a technology. Similarly, what you may have read in the press. So last year there was a story about a British Airways pilot flying in to land at Heathrow, and he looked out of his right side of his plane, and not sort of 500 feet away there was a drone just sort of hanging around near Heathrow Airport. So again, pretty scary for the airport operator, and certainly for that pilot. So what may surprise you with some of that background, there actually really are some real sort of commercial uses of drones. So whether if you saw the advertising from Amazon last year using experimenting using drones for parcel delivery, or if you know about use of drones for things like inspection of mobile phone masts or construction sites. So there really is valuable commercial uses for drones, but if you're a regulator responsible for flight safety, then you're thinking very carefully about what you can and what you can't do to monitor activity. And clearly, if there's identity information about that thing, or identity information about the operator of the drone, if that's things which you can put to, for example, to blockchain a record, then that is going to help to create that view of what drones are where at any one time, and you'll have the location information and so on. So that's a first example I wanted to you to think about. The second example is autonomous vehicles. So the picture here on the right is from the Consumer Electronics Show, and in collaboration with Local Motors, who sort of design and sort of did a 3D print of vehicles. Ollie here is a vehicle designed for people with accessibility challenges. So people with disabilities, maybe they can't see or can't see very well, or can't hear or can't hear very well. And with IBM's Watson technology helping to provide that interaction for those passengers on the autonomous vehicle, then it's a great sort of use case for autonomous vehicles and enabling different people to get around the city environment. So one of the challenges with autonomous vehicles, if you think about now that you have the software, the autonomous driving software that is in charge of directing the vehicle where the route it takes and its interactions with other road users, you need to be very, very certain as to what is the quality of that software that's doing that's enabling that autonomous driving. And here again, sort of working with manufacturers and so on, we see a role there for blockchain for holding that record information about exactly what is the software that is running on an entire fleet or any one of those individual vehicles, and with that record holding sort of proof of what kind of tests, what kind of integration tests that have been done on that autonomous software, then there's something we see that's valuable there. So my third example is transport for transport for the north. So if you don't know, in northern England, they are looking at enabling sort of joined up, seamless journeys for users, such that if you wanted to go, for example, from Liverpool to Manchester to Sheffield or to Leeds and through on to Hull, how can you do that in a seamless, joined up way for those transportation users? And so clearly, if you are today, if you're a train operator, if you're a bus operator, if you're a tram operator, then you will have your different ticketing and management systems that are running. And where in this example, there's a potential blockchain use case for if you're capturing the transactions about those passengers. So where a person enters the transportation system, where they exit the transportation system, all their interaction and transfer points between the different operators, you can have that transaction record of those passenger journeys. And for the operators, so for the bus operator, the tram operator, the train operator, if you're wanting to do a transparent share out of whether it's a share out of revenue or share out of cost based on actual passage and journeys, then if you have that transaction record on something like the blockchain, then you'll have transparency there of transactions. So that was my third example of where we think blockchain could bring value to transportation networks through traceability. Now, why blockchain? We've heard a lot already this morning, but really from IBM's perspective, where blockchain brings value is for those multi-party business processes. So where there's multiple different parties interacting together. There's certain activity you want to keep private within your own systems. There's other activities which you want to share with other parties that you're working with, and it's those multi-party business processes which is where the sweet spot is for blockchain. And for from IBM's perspective, we recognise for sort of enterprise business, for government, it's really the permission type blockchains which are going to enable bring the biggest value for those types of operators. And really just the final thing to say is, look, if none of this is going to help you do things more efficiently, then it's not worth doing at all. So it's really sort of key to focus on, okay, so what are the benefits in terms of revenue or in terms of cost saved and so on. If you can't do it more efficiently, so why bother? So really that is what I wanted to cover. So thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. That was 3 good use cases there: drones, AVs, and for TFN as well. So real good insight in there. Last to this.